Welcome to Wake Up Excited. I'm Brad Frost, and in this episode, I talk with the designer dynamo, Mr. Aaron Draplin. Aaron is a legendary graphic designer, putting his distinctive thick line mark on seemingly everything under the sun: logos, posters, hats, shirts, toothbrushes, the United States postage stamp, and of course, the iconic Field brands notebooks. Aaron and I met many years ago, and I've always resonated with his authenticity, which really feels to be born from growing up in post-industrial America. And perhaps working class America is also why I've always been attracted to this very 70s retro graphic design aesthetic, which really is the Draplin Design Company's signature style. So we have a long and hilarious and meandering conversation where we talk about the double-edged sword of work and success. We talk about work, hustle, and burnout. We talk about the ongoing tension of overcoming a scarcity mindset, even whenever you achieve a certain level of financial stability. We talk about redefining what success is and what really enough means. We talk about letting go of things, decluttering, and simplifying your life. And we really talk about aligning your life to your intrinsic motivators rather than being pulled around by a bunch of external pressures. We also talk about life transitions and taking care of the people in our lives. And I also give some advice to Aaron on how to successfully plan and execute a sabbatical. There's a lot to dig into, but before we do, I just wanted to remind you that Wake Up Excited is a real labor of love, and this whole affair is totally self-funded. So if you want to support the show and support me and my work and my family, I'd love it if you checked out our online courses. We have a comprehensive course all about design tokens. We have a new atomic design certification course, and we're about to announce another exciting course that I will be sharing soon. I'd love it if you checked out our online courses at bradfrost.com/courses. Now, without any more wind up, here's my conversation with the one and only Aaron Draplin.
By the way, I said no to all the other podcasts, but you, being a wild bass player and a dad to a little teacup human, a beautiful little baby, who's maybe not a baby anymore, but I see how you celebrate your family, and I don't give two shits what you do for you. You know what you're like for me? Cabell Sasser. Do you know him?
No.
From Panic. Panic is the FTP guys here in Portland. They did Transport and a bunch of things. Anyway, he's one of these guys.
Okay.
Yeah, so smart, such a sweet guy. Employs a bunch of his buddies, and is always doing something interesting. And has incredible stories about he talked with Steve Jobs 20 years ago or something, and they offered him something. He was on the forefront of all this Mac software, but he's an enigma to me. And you have a little of that too, because that's like, well, I met you. You weren't this like go-getter that was going to like put a knife to my throat or off. You just talk to me, versus, well, here's who I am. Here's what I do. I get a lot of that. I'm good with it. But all these years later, you're still a bit of a mystery. But when I see you, I don't tune into whatever. I don't even know what you do, Brad Frost. I tune into seeing you ripping on the drums or things, enjoying time with your little girl or whatever. It's like, that's more me around here. That's all we've been talking about is how to slow it all down.
And that's exactly what I want to get into, because it's just like, oh, you're a kindred spirit. I know that you are operating in a similar way and have a similar set of values, and you're real. And I think that that's the thing that this whole show is about. Like, as somebody who doesn't really give a shit about podcasting, I have many vehicles for disseminating real and practical information, and this ain't it. We'll get into it, but this is all born of, I feel like, the same frustration that you let me know about in your response to my invitation for you to come on here.
Yeah.
I wrote it down. It's like, fair warning. But I want to pick at what you've already started talking about is what has you waking up excited right now? What is new and exciting in the world of Aaron?
Well, thank you. Everybody, all 700 77,000, all listeners and viewers, all 7 of you, listen up, press record. The last 4 summers, like a dumbass, I piecemealed a new website together.
Okay.
Now understand this after, we're talking a decade plus of being berated by Brad Frost all over the world. Not, you didn't do it, but we'll just say intelligent people who understand that if you have a good website and an up-to-date website, you can get a little farther with these things. So I'd have these guys come to me and have any number of interventions at these gigs I'd go to. We need to talk to you. Pull me aside, and here's 3 turkey dicks from Turkey Dick Design, and they're going to rebuild my entire site. And we're going to rehubulate and recalculate and revisulate. Oh, I don't know. I put money on the table 10 years ago and said, okay, well then do it. Let's do it.
Yep.
And then the excuses started. I've put money on the table because they had a proprietary Zim-Zam that they were going to sell me. And then the excuses start. So you just step back from that and you go, you know what? This hunk of shit movable type thing, it's still generating. I have to be okay with this much, whatever this much was. It was a substantial amount of merch sales. Now I can generate this much plus 4 more. I have to grow 4 more little fingers off this hand. Okay. So what I did was during the pandem, I started a Squarespace and we started to rebuild this thing. I thought through just how that navigation or unnavigation is going to work. And then I came to this very quick impasse. Is this just about selling merch or is it about showing all the shit you've done? And I just said, we'll do all of it. Now that's not very popular when smart guys come to you and say, well, we can put you on X, Y, and Z and you can sell this much stuff. So they would look at me and they go, well, we can go look at abandoned carts and things and stuff. And we can see how you're frustrated. Well, I mean, here's the scary part is like, well, that's great. But let's say we get that right. What happens when I have to tell Lee, you have to work 9 days out of the 5 you're supposed to work? My girl, Lee, my little smooch. He helps me with the merch. We are a 2-man band, 2-person band, and we work in the backyard. So that could have very well happened. So the last 4 summers I did, the first summer was like just getting the basics down. By the way, when the fall rips back into it, we are busy on the road. And then we're going to Adobe. And then the merch season starts. And then January, it's so hard to be blah, 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 blah. Next thing you know, I have a couple things in the spring and we're right back into these cycles. Right? Next thing you know, you're 50 years old. Like, whoa, what the hell? So in November 25th, after these 4 summers, we rallied this summer and I put this new site up. And I'm just here to say it works. It's Squarespace, but 1/2 is everything I've ever done. It took the rock and roll section alone is 48 chapters. What happens when you go to sporting goods or whatever? That's another 60. 60 things I have to show? Well, you have to find the things. You got to shoot them. You got to talk about it. You got to get the dates. Okay, all this. Well, I did that. On the other hand, every bit of merch I've ever made, it's all up there. So people didn't even know I had 140 hats because the last site, which was garbage from 2004, was pretty hot shit in 2004, but it worked. So one of the things I like to talk about on the road, have you ever heard of the Pocket Protector online gallery?
No, but I love it.
Now, what this is, some 1994, 96 website technology, it still works. It still works. And here it is, John A. Podman or Podman or whatever. Okay. This still works if I want to go look at a bunch of pocket protectors. He's still adding to it. And the beauty, and we can make fun of the purple links and the blue links. So in some respects, some guys would come after me, I would say, go look at Postman. It still works. Yeah. Doesn't work on your phone as nicely, but this was built before phones. So here's the deal. If you want to look at pocket protectors like I like to, You can go look. So how's it any different if a kid's finding my stuff? So all that, whatever, we launched that fucker November 25th. It is working swimmingly. December is always our wildest month of the year. We worked so much in December up to that December 20th cutoff or whatever.
Yeah.
By the way, all you 700,000 people listening, thank you for buying some shit from us. Thank you. Wally, we're going to track your package down. We're looking. I'll just send another one out if it doesn't find you if you're listening. Because, a couple things went missing. So that is really this weird precipice you get to where you say, all right, it's all online. It's easier for me to show stuff. I am deplatforming myself, which means like, I don't have the heart right now to show the daily meanderings that I've showed for as many years as I've showed on my Instagriz, because there's a bunch of these fascists and shit running it. What happens if someday we woke up, if it wasn't TikTok getting turned off, which I've never really been interested in, so my heart wasn't all that invested. But what happens if it was Instagram that I made all my money on and showed all my bullshit and, what are smart things smart people are doing? They're pointing at things. God, insufferable. Look at me. Oh, how do I make this logo round? Or how do I make it fucking insufferable? I can't even look at it. So I don't want to be one of those guys.
Yeah. I think what you're touching on, though, is there's an authenticity to stuff, right? And that's like the big difference is that there's performative shits, there's marketing shit, there's like literal tap dancing for stuff. But then there's the route that both of us maybe have taken is this natural extension of your being, right? And that's very interesting because it's different. Because obviously, like, you are very incentivized to sell your stuff, as am I, right? We're both business owners and we're like, please give me money, right? That's how this works. We're both incentivized to like sell our shit, right? But there's an authenticity, the way the world isn't there and the way that you are on the inside. There's this friction or incompatibility where it's like you could smell bullshit a mile away. You see a bunch of shitty people owning and operating these platforms and you're like, can't do it, right? And I think that's really fascinating because it's this phenomenon that I bump up against seemingly every day of my life. And I want to like get at with you and what you're working on. And I'm hearing this trend of like, I am downshifting. You even use that word. I use that word too. And it's just like, oh my God, when you've been firing on all cylinders for so long, you hit this threshold where that isn't tenable anymore, but you're also like in this, like in a different season of life. Another thing I want to get at, you did it a year sabbatical. I did 3 months and I was, man, this like,
I don't think I actually did it. Yes. Well, I never talked about it, but what happens is the lure goes water and you bite on that fucker because it's like, there's opportunities, there's things, there's jobs. Because I take care of my girl, I take care of my mom, I take care of my sisters, and then every now and again, my asshole buddy Dale. So you put those all together, I got a lot of weight on my shoulders. One thing I want to say about what you were saying before, it's like when I say deplatforming, the other day a kid wrote me and he said, Draplin, I found your old Flickr account. I never knew you had that much in there. And I hadn't looked at it in over a decade. And I went back to it. I just scrolled through some shit. And what I loved about that, it was like an Instagram. It was just a way to show things up. But there was no incentivizing, hey, maybe they'd come buy some DDC stuff. But I just liked the sharing and the sort of back and forth. If you take it one step before that, I used the shit out of my MySpace to share things and show, because someone could click through a bunch of images and see what I was finding on the road and learn from that like I did. I did that with my Instagram the last 12 years. They're freaking me out. Whoever owns that whole thing, Meta or whatever the hell. So how do I pull that back? Because if you're interested in my little take on junk or old things or slowing down, you can come to thedraplin.com and dig around. And that was my ask for the guy, was like, And whether or not I get licks, clicks, likes, links, dunks, I don't even know what the metric is anymore, how many I got. And I don't even give a fuck. It was just fun to share. So when I pull back now, I still have to post things. I did a thing yesterday for Ann Arbor because I'm going to speak there. I promised that young lady I would post so people would get the word out. There's comments and there's people planning and they're driving from Indiana. They're going to come from Cleveland over to see the show I'm doing in Ann Arbor. So it's a tool. But like, how do we pull that thing back? You know, so as part of trying to be creative, how I do this, I don't want to just come and say, I'm going to turn everything off. And then that's just not realistic. And then I'm going to go build a cabin in the woods and be a hermit. But in summer, there's something romantic about that. But it lasts about 3 days. You can't get it in your Wells Fargo or some shit. You know, it's like, how old are you, by the way?
You celebrated 50 and I celebrated 40. Yeah.
You had your party. Yeah, you had your party. Right.
Yeah.
So I did see some photos. Look pretty fun. Does it freak you out? Because the stuff that when we go on the road and people say to me, okay, you're an open book. We can ask you anything. What scares you? And I'll go, let's talk. Being broke. I know what that tastes like a little bit.
Yes.
And I'll never go back to that because in my 30s and my 40s, I worked my ass off. So now do I continue to keep that beast going because it's harder and harder to do it? Or do I just start to coast on the little acorn pile that I collected for the winter? Because how do we creatively say, like, what if I was just to say, Bucket Frost, I'm retiring. Let's go do the math. So I've been really interested in those scenarios. I don't know what I would do with all my time, but it probably has something to do with collecting Legos and other stupid little trivial things, learning things on my guitar, putting records on walls, putting them on that record player and doing stuff like that. Those are the things I enjoy. So a lot of what I've been talking about on the road is when they go, well, what gets you out of bed? Joy. What do I just enjoy? What delights me? Now, can I make some fun things like middle-aged t-shirts and shit that make fun of these dumb ideas that bring delight and joy to someone else and make a little buck to keep the lights on? The answer is you can. But I don't know if my heart is in it to solve people's logos and stuff anymore. The moment you open that fucker up, they're stopping you. They're starting you. You're in holding patterns. Oh, you're on phone calls about phone calls, emails about emails. What's interesting, if I only make my own dumb shit, you know, not even Draplin design, like I made a sticker that said, be easy. Do what you will with it. Oh. But I never saw another sticker that said that. That is a rumination for me to slow my life down. Yeah. And maybe someone would buy that and say to their spouse or to their partner, their buddy, hey, be easy. You're making shit too hard. And we think about, you know, on some level of, can I make a little buck off that little bit of entertaining or something? So we've been talking about that because I got to tell you, in the last month, it's been hard to get out of bed because I have to chart a new course. Yeah. Chart a new course. It's scary. And I know it's not involving being stressed, freaked out, getting on planes, getting off planes. You know, I know that you are a Brad Frost. There's only one of those. And you're probably in demand to go talk and speak and do things and make things and do things. You know, I got to be one of those for a lot of years, but how do I just turn it off? It's okay to turn it off and graciously say, see you guys around. Thank you. You know, hopefully I shook everyone's hand. I was nice to everybody. Yeah. And then because here's the deal. And I always say this on podcasts. I've been in the backstages and I've seen the guy who didn't quite know that his shit was done and they're fighting it and they're mean. The 51-year-old is mean to the Brad Frost who's 40 and a half because he's got some new thing that's coming up. And that's just somewhere I drop off and you keep on going until you drop. Instead of you being told you're done, how about I just stop? So we've been just having these conversations about like, don't take the bait on going to this next hot shit thing. Yeah. Be on the plane for a whole day, hard to eat, hard to, et cetera. You're going to spend a great day in Omaha, Nebraska with all the youngsters, for a whole day and come back on Friday. And man, you lose 2 days of your life getting there and coming on back. Now, the way I creatively dealt with that for the last 575 shows. You can see them all. They're all listed on the site. I would work on the way there and I would work on the way back. And when I would get there, they want to go to the coolest monosyllabic restaurant. I'd say, just go back to the hotel. I'm going to work tonight, get all my shit done so I can spend Thursday with you guys. I did that. I creatively used my time to kill 19 birds with one stone. But see, that's harder and harder to do. So what gets me out of bed, the idea of like, today, I'm just going to clean my shop. Now, there's no paycheck that comes from that, but I have paychecks in the bank. Today, I'm going to work on, I got to be careful. I just got off the phone with some folks from, it rhymes with Rantone. I got off the phone with some folks with Pantone about who knows. And it was an interesting conversation because it's like, hey, man, if I can figure out something, I'll pitch you. But if I don't, it's okay. Still using the shit every hour. How can I tell that story to a kid? I don't know.
You're thinking that a couple things. There's joy, your core value. There it is. Now, how do you apply that in the world? And how does that application change over time? That's really interesting because there's a season to grind as hard as you can and earn as much big bucks as you can so that you have the acorns lined up. But I'm not saying like totally mission accomplished, but our whole things about this fire, like financial independence, retire early, where you bust your ass, get that little nest egg going, and then you can downshift or turn it off entirely or just go build Lego sets. It's fascinating to me because I'm literally in the exact same position as you. Like right before today, I announced that I was like leaving the company I was helping run for the last couple of years. Right. And I'm going off on my own. And my intention is to do anything I feel like. I've been doing client services. I've been working for companies for 20 years, right? So not as long as you, but just like you were saying earlier, it's like the logo comes in and then there's the emails about the emails and the thing about the thing. And there's this intrinsic motivation that I think maybe we both share, that we know that we can just do whatever we want or what we feel like. And we know that it'll have decent outcomes. Some of those things will make you money, some of them won't. But there's this over dialing on the money thing that kind of ends up getting in the way. That's when you see those people who've been working the career they've had for 20 years and they suddenly wake up one morning and they realize that it's lots, right? Because they've over dialed so much on the stability that money provides, the expense of living a more joyful or fulfilled life. It's fascinating to me because what I see is a lot of people, whether they're kids or people like a little further down the road, they're all still like doing that dance. And when people like us come along and have them dig a bit deeper and remind them the cosmos, or remind them of our place in all of this, or that you're allowed to think however you want or do whatever you want. And there's no permissions. We have agency. We have the ability to just make things with our hands. And if you want to learn guitar, then learn guitar and do it. If you want to figure out how to bake, then do it. Like there's literally nothing stopping people.
Well, what'll stop people is, how do you pay your rent?
Which is real, right? Like it is a real thing. These are absolutely real things, but people use that as an excuse to deprive themselves of the joy of living, right?
Like, have you ever met someone and you're like, you don't worry about shit, but we're missing something here. How do you cover insurance, this, that, and you come to find out it's just a bunch of family money?
Yeah.
That's like, oh, fuck off. You didn't tell me that. You came down on me. You work too much, Draplin. You didn't tell me that you have a leg up on the rest of us. And then you played that. You spent that currency in a different way. Get out of here. Because I don't come from that. So the fair response of like, shit, I gotta take care of my mom. I gotta take care of Lee. But what happens when you get to a point where you're like, I might have enough to just cover things for a long time? And what kind of recalibrate to make things a little easier on old job number one? Never in my life did I think I would get to a spot where I was like, I'm ahead. But that happened in 2009, where I paid off the last of my school loans. I paid off my house. I think it was 2011. Like, I haven't had a penny of debt since 2013 or something. Yeah. Things come and go. You built your studio back here, and I paid 5 installments of cash to my buddy Robbie, who built it, $250,000. 50, whatever, 5 installments. But at the end, my accountant yelled at me and said, no. You're getting a loan because the Draplin Design Company is going to rent this from Aaron Draplin, or the other way around. I don't know how they do it. But it's legal, beagle. You're an S Corp and you're renting. So this thing's this weird write-off, but it skeeves me out because I had it paid off. Yeah. But that money came back into my account. And then every year she shows me the benefit of having that. Okay, that's what adults do. So for me to simplify my life and have the sea change, what that meant for me was that's when I started to be able to dream 9, 10, 11, 12, because I got away from this. How the hell am I going to pay for everything? Well, now I figured out how to pay for it. How do I just go and take more of that? But when is it too much? See, that's what we're running into. And it's a weird thing. So it's kind of like, then you're guilty that you're not taking every job, podcast, interview, zam, this, up, down, right? You feel guilty because how dare someone who comes from what I come from say no to any of this shit? But I just did that for 20 years. See, you've had your 20 years because you started younger. I started at 19, but it was to go snowboarding for 5 years. And then 5 years of education, a couple of years of cutting my teeth. And then I started at 30. So see, here's the thing. I've met a couple people along the way who are 62 who say things to me like, I just listened to your talk. I'm going to tell you, you touched on a couple things where you said, why do I have to wait around to start enjoying my life? Well, I've been enjoying my life. See, first of all, it's not like you're at a factory where you hate yourself. Sometimes maybe a factory job's awesome. You got to make your life being, creating successful businesses. What you did it for, you're going to do it for yourself now, but you did it for other people and clients and companies and things, stuff. I got to be a cake decorator. It's really hard to blur those lines. How dare I worry about burnout when I get to be a fucking cake decorator, or you get to be a Brad Frost and come up, work with, look at that little dog in the back. What's the name of the dog?
See, named after Dick Collins, baby.
Okay. Yep. Boots. You look at little Boots. Don't even open your eyes, dog. Take it easy. I love dogs that stay on their side. There's a certain geometry. Don't get up, Boots. But it freaks me out because it's like in the last year and a half, I've been getting off the streaming train of, I need to watch this program because my heart just gets broken because the shit sucks. So that means following Game of Thrones, following these sorts of things. So I've just backed off from that shit. Yeah. And I like to watch E.T. and I like to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark if I'm, feeling that need for that kind of, to scratch that itch. But YouTube, I went and got the premium thing.
Yep.
It has been an amazing little therapist for me because I'll type in until I'm 59 and a half to get what I've amassed a motherfucker of a CPIRA. Every now and again, you'll see the shadow. It's looming right behind me. You'll just see it wash over this shadow of, okay, well, I got to get to 59 to have it.
Yep.
There's other shit that I can just use right now. So you have to understand, me feeling a little bummed the last month. It's like, how do I get this? How do I pull off what I pulled off all those years? I did a budget for myself. I know what my monthly number is just to exist.
There it is.
And I've got that sitting in one account, just one of these little aspects for the next 7.5 years or 8 years until I'm 59. Like I don't have to work. And then when 59 hits, I get a big old shadow. Now that is some sobering shit because it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Now, on the moral level, well, take care of my mom. I got to do the right thing. And I'll go on this YouTube and I'll do these gentle philosophical meanderings and I'll listen while I'm looking at some old magazine or something. I'm kind of just listening to it like maybe a podcast. But I'm using it like some little therapist. I don't know. See, it's a privilege to even stop yourself and think this way. And then I feel guilty for that because what I know is you get those jobs, you be a good citizen, you deliver, and then you make sure that you provide good work and you get a paycheck. Well, what if I slowed all that stuff down? This is where I'm at. And then you take stock. Well, I like playing with my Legos. I like playing my guitar. I like playing with myself. I like whatever. You start going through all the things. It's like, well, what brings me direct joy? I'm so clouded. I like making logos and you can make money. How dare I say no? So check it out, Mr. Brad Frost. I haven't taken any jobs in 2025 because I've been enjoying like, okay, I'm going to clean this shop. I'm going to pare down some things that need to be pared down. I could use a haircut. That's a problem. And one of those court-ordered haircuts where they take you and they go, just get the hair out of his eyes. What happens if I don't keep my pace, then I get poopy. And it's scaring me. So I ask you, you're getting ready to go embark on this new thing. Yeah. You don't have to give me social security numbers and bank accounts and shit, but you do have savings, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because I had guys pull me aside and say, the first $5,000 you have in the bank, I didn't even have that in 2004. The first $5,000 you have in the bank. If you can get to there, you have enough to go see your parents when you want to go see them in Michigan and not feel that at the time was about a $500 ticket. When you get 10 grand in the bank, now you can go take a vacation. What happens when you get 50 in the bank? What happens when you get 500,000 in the bank? Now, I'm not being braggy, but what I'm saying is I could be anywhere around that. What if I'm way over that? I only know how to operate in the $5,000 realm still. I don't. Yeah. Shirt is like, it's on every fucking podcast because it's a Cabela's chamois shirt. I don't care what's in style. The albums haven't worn out yet.
Wardrobe.
He makes fun of me. Aaron got a new pair of sweatpants this last decade. Now, that's me. I could go out and buy whatever, but what Fugazi taught me, when you see these things with Ian Mackay, he's wearing the same little shitty beanie he was wearing in this interview on that thing. There's a beauty. There's a humanity. There's a honesty to some of that. Okay. Yeah. But I ask you, because I had guys pull me aside, and I really took that to heart, because when they pulled me aside, I didn't even have 5. I was still just getting up to speed and paying things off. Somewhere in here, I have some shitty 8-bit looking screen grab of when I paid off one of my credit cards in 2002. I had been carrying that credit card 96 with a balance of $7,000 or $8,000 because that's just the system. That's the numbers, and they know they can get you in a pickle. And it broke my heart. I wasn't fucking up. I wasn't drinking too much. I wasn't gambling too much. I wasn't getting in trouble. No, I was paying my monthly shit. There's no hand guide for any of this stuff. And I also don't want to become some creepy fucking Gary V guru bullshit. These fucking charlatans, man. They got him in design. They got him in coding. They got him in... I better not have them in records and Legos and shit because it'll just ruin me. But, like, I can't listen to this Tony Robbins schmuck of how to get yourself out of the hole or into the hole or out of the... I don't even know. It's like... Got to stop. And what's the next question, Frost?
What we're talking about here is a scarcity mindset, right? That dates from growing up in Michigan. In my case, my hometown is called Oil City, Pennsylvania. It is where oil was discovered. It's where the oil industry began. Too much oil in Oil City these days.
Okay.
And back home, it's every year it gets bleaker and bleaker. It's rough growing up in that environment. Keep seeing, just as you're describing here. I like how you said that even whenever you more in the bank, you're operating under this scarcity mindset. What's wild is other versions of my mother-in-law's from the Philippines. You really want to talk. Grow up with a dirt floor, and it shapes you and how you see the world, how you operate. It sounds like the tension is for you. If I'm hearing you right, is it's like mentality is you actually use that very skillfully to become financially successful. You're like, okay, I'm here, but I cannot trade. You've kicked at the answer already. Whenever you go, oh, you crunch the numbers, and those numbers provide the clarity, even though you simply can't fully trust them. I'm in a similar situation where I think I'm in pretty good shape. You can never be too sure, right? Even when you have the accountants, no, you're good, actually. You're like, don't believe it. I don't trust you because I've seen when you.
If you're a fly on the wall with my accountant and hearing me say things that are like, I don't want to say immature, but almost naive, where I kind of go, am I okay? One time my accountant told me, Aaron, I have a guy that has $46 million and he's a wreck. You don't have that, but you can do with what you've got something wonderful. Learn from him. He is mean on the phone. He's mean to people around him. He hasn't had to work ever for a long time. Where do I go plug into some little field? Am I going to be okay? You're going to have to pay for a therapist. You're going to have to pay for some creepy life coach. You're going to have to pay for some little thing. No. Where can I just put a Google in? This is what's in the bank. Am I going to be okay? Because no one will tell you that. Because then I kind of go, okay, well, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. I need to step and buckle the fuck back down and say, yes. And next thing you know, I'm on the road way too many times. Fun. There's such an improbable nature to that shit. Who's the sweet guy that you're synonymous with him? Dan with the curly black hair.
Dan Mall.
Dan Mall. Now, I don't know what Dan Mall does, but I know when I looked him up, he's a smart guy. And he would mess with me. And one time we were at one of these interactive things where it was a UX UI crowd. Dan Mall was sitting right in the front row and he was kind of giving me these like, hey, Trent, he knows me enough to mess with me. I kind of go, oh, well, there's Dan Mall. Got out of work release today, Dan Mall. Nice to see you, Dan Mall. And I go, let me warm up the crowd while we're waiting for everyone to roll in. And I go, I grab the mic and I go, let's do a sound check. What's the old adage? If you can't do graphic design, there's always UX. Click. And it fucking Dan was like, how dare he talk like that in the age of whatever? And I was like, just having a little bit of fun with the crowd. But when I think of like a Dan Mall, like, guys, talent, and he was loose about it. There's a lesson there. When I would kind of trade notes with him, I don't even know the guy that much. I thought he was cool. I liked him. He didn't carry himself too seriously until you looked at some of the stuff he did and was like, oh, he knows his shit. He knows his shit. That's really interesting to me. What I don't want to do is turn this into some like, I got the answer to it all. It's like, it'd be really more like if I had to go like try to make a podcast that just says anything but design with Aaron Draplin. Who's afraid of going to the doctor? I am. You ought to see me in there. I go in there and I go, okay. I got all the tears all dried up. I'm ready for inspection. Any folder flap you can dig around it. Want me to drop the drawers and get into no man's land? Get in there. I don't know. I submit to you. I surrender. And the guy's like, we're just checking your blood sugar, Draplin. Just sit down. Aaron, we got the blood work back. Your leg has been dead since March. Oh, shit. There was no podcast that was like, here's what happens when you don't feel sick all of your 30s and 40s and you don't go in like a jerk. But I was afraid. Now, what I'm proud to report is I've been in there 3 years. We're getting things right. The plumbing's better. Blood sugar's better. I have type 2 diabetes, as they call it in the industry. And so does a third of everybody else. But I didn't even know. But we got it cool. We got it under control and we're working on it and whatever. But at least I'm in the realm. I'm in the room. So finance-wise, you get people to help you. You get people to do things. Getting your head on right. So all we're discussing with my friends is like, what's our next route? Because you better plan it. You have the privilege to plan it. Be thankful for that. Help everybody around you, but you're going to have to work out some shit for yourself. And I don't know where to go to, as I've said 17 times, but I'm finding a weird solace in just trading notes with buddies to say, okay, well, I mean, do you have some answers? We don't, but we're kind of collectively trading notes. And it's just a really interesting thing. That's why when I asked you have some savings, right? Because you have to understand, I do these workshops and shit, and I get a Brad Frost who's got a bunch of talent and a bunch of stuff. And he's like, I have $2,000 in the bank. And it's like, you are not allowed to quit your job until you have 10, 15, 20. What are you doing? There is no glory in being compromised. You have a good job. Guess what happens when you leave your job? You have to pay for your insurance. I pay $700 a month. You have to go to a job at 9:00 and deal with some shitty guy by the water cooler. Shut up. Don't leave your job. You're not ready. So I get those guys who come up to me because they heard me wrestling with my own shit. And I go down the line. I go, you got some savings, right? I do. How's your house look? You have a place to be, car running okay? Because those are all factors. When I went on my own in 2004, I had about 50 in the bank, 50,000. I saved a bunch up because I knew at the worst case scenario, I had my rent covered for about 2 years. So if I had to go back and get a job, I had things covered because I did the budgets. I remember one time a headhunter called me from the graphic design and branding industry. She called me and she said, Aaron Draplin. This was 2006 or 7. I'm going to drop some numbers and you guys better watch your toes because I'm going to get braggy for a second. Anyway, woman calls me up and she goes, we see what you're doing. Like your style. You have some talent. We can plug you in. Aaron, this is the upper echelons of branding. It's an agency. You're going to be on planes to go land jobs. You're going to work on these jobs on the way back. You're going to get back to the agency, pitch things. On Fridays, they have casual. They have casual Friday. I said, I haven't worn pants all year long. She goes, okay, tell me more. She tells me all about the job. She runs me through the shit. You have to have a degree. You have to have this many years of experience and you have to be this tall. Your face has to be this and all this. And she goes, and by the way, let's talk compensation. And I go, oh, here we go. Because you just built one. I remember her saying,
big build up.
She goes, they've got $87,500 for you. What do you think about that? Like, boom, drop the mic, and I kind of go, ma'am, on my own, as a pile of fuck in my backyard, whatever technical terms I used, this was in 2006. I broke 200,000 last year, and I worked with my friends. I didn't have to get on a plane to go pretend some shit. I didn't even wear pants. And she just apologized, and you are very lucky. I had a job before. You can go look it all up somewhere. And I was getting paid $65,000 a year in 2004. And I said, I'm going to go on my own. I'll give you a month and I'll, as gentle as possible, jump out of this. They offered me 115 or 100 that day. And I was like, well, what about the last 2 years? Where's that come from? Because they're only going to pay you what they have to. When I got on my own, that changed, but I had to do it strategically. So see, that was a sea change for me then. But the other way now is just scary. What if the joy is found in volunteering to help people around Portland?
Yeah.
What if the joy is found in, here's a little old man who can't do his lawn?
Yeah.
I'll do it. I don't know. I like doing the lawn. I'll go do the lawn.
If that's the thing, the joy must persist because it is you, right? Like through and through. And how do you superimpose yourself on whatever situation it is, going and help it, whatever, frame a new house or
you've always had an incredible presence to what you do, positive and interesting take and space helmets and all the other riff and rap. By the way, you got to update that space thing because you were like 13 there.
I got adjustable one.
change the budget a little bit, and Bootsy has to take a bit of a hit. There we go. Wow. Because the idea is like
you could buy a roll of mirror ball tape.
Oh wow.
For $7. $7. You get a lot of it.
Okay, now wait. I'm going off course. You started this thing for yourself. Are you already getting calls?
Well, from my own, but also not. So I've been my own thing since 2013. And I've been working, just as you described, working with your friends, right? To make cool shit happen. I've done my own version of that. But for the longest time, in my world, it's maybe more of a team sport than, you could just kind of bang out some logos on your own. And
you're right. You are totally right. One thing I've always loved about the coding world, what we say, when someone has a problem, they post something and everyone would help them.
Dude,
there's a certain,
it's magic.
It sounds kind of shitty for, to graphic designers, but people like to kind of keep their stuff close. I never subscribed. Anyway, okay, keep going.
Yeah. So I've been doing my own thing since 2013, but after a while, we got tired. We're like a big Fortune 500 company. Like, can you, Brad, singular, help us? And I'm like, well, no, I got me and all my friends. So it ended up making just a big pragmatic sense to be like, well, let's just present as a company, and then that will save us a lot of to describe. These are my friends, and like, we're here to help you, and don't worry, we've been working together for it. So we did that. And what's interesting is once that dynamic got set up, like, you'll appreciate this because, man, if you want to talk about strong personal brands, you're probably in it. I have my own flavor of personal brand or whatever. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, now I'm operating under this other roof. Those aren't my brand colors, but also like a business is shaped like this, right? The equivalent for you would be that agency, right? You're going to do this brand design. You're going to do this collateral. You're going to do this. Lego sets aren't part of it. Cleaning up the thing, it isn't there. Volunteering isn't part of it, right? But whenever you're your own being, you have full control, you have full agency. You're very motivated by a number of factors, but we know that we need to keep the lights on. But we also know that branch is only one track of life. And that in order to live a good and fulfilled life, you have to have a diversity of experience. Maybe you turn the knobs, you turn things up and down, you turn up the mids, you turn down the bass like occasionally or whatever, based on what season you're in. But just like you said, that 59.5 or like all those people that are going through life and waiting for things to get good and to live life and to lean into things and have hobbies and to listen to good music and do fun things. People are like, I will do that afterwards. I mean, dude, my father-in-law, he worked and had that attitude. And then it's just pure as shit, like any movie script. And there you go. And then right? And that's why.
How old was your father-in-law?
He's in his 50s.
I'm sorry to hear that, man.
But it's the lesson, right? It is the lesson. And it is a cliche. It's just unfortunately a cliche that I have to front row seat for, right?
Yeah.
So my wife, she is pursuing an arts therapy degree, which is, there's a million different ways you can apply arts therapy in the world. And she got an internship at a hostess. Literally last week, she's holding someone's hand, a plaster cast of their hands. Part of this thing, it's for the family, it's like healing for them. This person literally died as she was doing this like plaster cast. And it's like, when you're confronted with that.
Wow.
When we're all confronted with massive life event that will befall us all, it puts things into perspective.
Oh my God. I mean, what are the conversations like when the little lady comes home? Years ago, my dad, when he was still around, one of his buddies back in Traverse City, Michigan, was this guy who was a deacon. Now, he wore the thing with the Catholic cross, and it's a little intense, but whatever. But that's fine, but he was a deacon. And what he would do, there's no money for this. He gave me his business card because I was in the hospital when I had my appendix out in 2011. And, his guy's name was Reem. Reem came by and he prayed for me. I remember going, hey, say a little something to the big guy upstairs, or maybe it's the big girl upstairs. General positivity. Because why are we the only Catholics and we're the only ones who are right? Buddhists on the other side of the world. What the fuck? Do ants die and go to heaven too? Are there lots of ants in heaven? Because there's a lot more ants on the wheel. But he's praying for me. And what's really interesting is when people would die, Reen would go in there, and sometimes people are isolated from their families. And he's the last person that they know from this relationship of like, are you okay? Let me check on you. Do you need anything? Let me pray for you. Let me talk to the people and get them back in here. And sometimes they're just at the end. And he's the guy praying for them as they go over. And it was just like this wash of like whatever fucking flavor you subscribe to of the hereafter or whatever, that's real. And that was his job. And he had these business cards that you cut out from a template and they're all crooked and shit. So I went and made him this really somber with his digits and his stuff, basic email, this big long GeoCities email, some kind of, Lyco space web crawler .geo, whatever the fuck, some long, old person email. I made him a better business card because, man, you got to get that right. You're sometimes in the scariest moments of someone's life. Now, listen, I don't necessarily want to become a deacon, but there was a paycheck there, this abstract paycheck that's why, like my dad, you have to be of service on some level, whether or not it's teaching kids about Adobe Illustrator or how to wrangle going on their own or whatever. Not everything's about a paycheck, Aaron. I watched that exhibited in front of me as a kid. And now when it's my turn now to go make some changes, because here's the thing, if I got my budget figured out, why wouldn't I go and put stock in just watching the sun come up or the sun go down? Why wouldn't I? Because I'm caught in this weird pressure system of like, you got to keep earning. No, what no one ever tells you is when you make a lot of money, pay a lot of taxes. Every buck you make at some certain points, you're paying 49 cents back. That hurts. Because I'm not, some multi-corporation back here. It's no different. I'm certainly not one of them. But what happens when you get a 22-year-old kid who's making $6 million a year, has to give back $3 million that first year? That's real with some sports stars and shit. That's just real. Rock and rollers. I have no buddies who have been with Jack White and stuff and things and stuff. And it's like, you make a bunch of money, you got to pay a bunch of tax. What if I slow that all down? And the paychecks aren't necessarily steeped in what I was able to pull off or do a good job. The paychecks are just smaller wins. Someone needed some help. I mean, how do you even tap into that? Oh, I've been on podcasts. I get these emails, people saying, come work for our nonprofit. Whoa. It's just, be back in the same slog with no paycheck.
Right.
Where do you go to say, utilize me?
And that's such a beautiful place to be because it is freedom and you're not short on ideas. I think that the thing with both of us is we've always been we've had these external things, whether it's big Fortune 500 company needing help with their design systems and their websites and stuff, or whether it's people reaching out to you about branding. We're always dependent on this other thing to at least help us frame how we got to spend at least some of our time on Earth. When you don't have that, there's, I think, a real opportunity to be able to define. You have freedom and you have nothing but good ideas and great energy. And what do you just bleep that at?
Well, yeah.
I think we've historically maybe needed other people to help us say, like, here's what you ought to be doing.
I mean,
that just comes from you because it's coming from you and it's in line with your core values. There's no conversation that needs to happen. It's just your hand and then your hands acting on it.
This isn't anything new. I have to go and look back to when I was a youngster. I'd go up to Alaska and work up on these summer jobs, and I would go be a dishwasher for the summer. And you're up there with all these beautiful people, and there were two schools of thought. Mine was to buckle down, because my first summer in 96, I went up there. I worked 5 months on this train as a dishwasher. I did extra runs, because over the course of a week, you'd have 2 runs. But we'd have 8 days, call it 8-day cycle. You'd do 2 up and down on the train up to Fairbanks, from Anchorage to Fairbanks and back, take a day off, do 2 more days, then you'd have 3 days off. So if you take that 8-day chunk, up and down 2, 1 day off, up and down 2, now we're at day 5, 3 days off, that's 8 days. And the 3 days that were off, people the money they made in the 5 days, they would go spend it. That was the first school where it was like, wait a second, you're not going to take any time, you're not going to take that back to the States? And it was like, no, we're going to enjoy our lives. We're going to camp and fight and screw and shoot guns and catch salmon and all the other wonderful things they were doing that cost money. We're going to have a great summer, and I'm going to work just as little as I have to have this great summer. That was one school of thought. Mine was like, I'm going to hoard it all, because on those 3 days that you'd add off, I'd put another 2-day run somewhere in there. So I'd get 6 of 8 days. Okay. So I did that. That's what allowed me to get my first computer. But here's the deal. And this is indicative of some kind of something I don't know where this comes from. This is my question. Why was it I would hate every second on the train? You were cutting your hands. I was a dishwasher. I use my hands to use a mouse and shit on a keyboard. So when I come back home, I have to get this computer, and now I'm armed with this new tool. But when we would get back each fall, it would take me 3 or 4 days, and I would sink. I don't know if it's a depression, but I would have this weird emptiness of like, I got to get back on the horse. And that comes from having a job when you're 13 years old, because my dad having to say to me, Aaron, we can't buy you skateboard decks every time you want one. They were, $80 or $70. You were into these records and CDs and things, Aaron. You go work and you can afford those things for you. By the way, if you want that car, I'll help you get the car, but you got to cover the insurance and the oil and all. We had this baked into us. When you see someone having a hard go around, not necessarily my mom and dad, you take notes on that shit. So that is baked into me. And it would happen in 97, 98, 99. Now, I went back to school. So you go from working all summer right back into school. There wasn't a gap. It was productive, little tiny gap just to drive from Alaska all the way to Minneapolis to go to design school. And then I went back to work. So what I'm getting at is last month, I've had a gap. We had a great 2024. We made money. I donated. I helped people. I took care of everyone around me. And I saved some extra shit. But when I took a gap, it started to fuck with me.
Yep.
Playing with Legos is fun and all, but it's not going to keep the lights on. I'm studying why that affects me the way it does. Are you the kind of guy, whether or not you have the big Fortune 500s, a conglomerate of like-minded Val heads and smart people to come and attack this thing as a unit? Or it's just you helping a buddy make some little thing? If you don't have the gigs, do you start to go crazy? Because hey, I'll play the latest shit I've been working with on the guitar, and you can play me some sweet bass riffs, but do you get skeeved out?
Yes.
Because, there's a momentum, there's a safety.
Yes.
And I'm actively trying to make myself uncomfortable. And I've got some weird news. Fucking scary, kind of.
Yeah. I think that's the opportunity. I'll say that I've turned a corner a little bit more on the scary part. And the way that I've accomplished that is by crunching the numbers, is by knowing what I need to do. Just like those people doing the 3 days, they're 5 days on. I know that this chunk is going to get me through these next 3 days off and get me on these little adventures or whatever. there's like a bigger version of that, which is if you bust your ass and you put this much away, there's concepts of like the 4% rule, where it's basically once you have enough money in the bank, you could safely withdraw 4% of that. It's never going to run out because the way that compounding interest works. Again, my small post-industrial mind still doesn't trust fully, but at the same time, that's why it's helpful to ask people. And you describe that with doctors and with financial people, whatever. It's like you got to put your trust in these professionals at least a little bit. Healthy amount of skepticism is also good too. But what that does is that takes the fear away, because it's whenever we, coming from where we're coming from, are trying to tackle these things that we have no business tackling. Of course it's scary, right? But I think that the thing that is fascinating is like by offloading that to people and making sure that you're crossing your I's and dot your T's. That's that pressure release valve for the fear to dissipate, and you're left with nothing but your joy and your enthusiasm and your skills and your fun and your everything. So then you're a kid in the candy store, because it's like going back through. And after you beat a video game and you get to go wherever the hell you want, you don't have to like earn it again. You play it with the cheat codes in there. But like when you've operated a certain way for a certain amount of time, and that's the lifeblood, and that's the thing that sustains you and your loved ones. Oh, it makes perfect sense that would be scary to have that month-long gap. And you go, oh my God. Like, is this okay?
When you go back to Oil City and you see maybe buddy you grew up with and stuff, does all this shit go out the window the moment you leave Oil City? Because you're like, I've maybe seen a couple case studies that are a little freaky. I'm going to go back home and say no. Because here's what I've done. I go back to Michigan, where I'm from. By the way, little Traverse City, Michigan's a cute little town. We weren't shit. Now it's cool. The real estate's through the roof, and it's the place people want to be, and isn't that just of interest? But sometimes I'll go back there and see a buddy struggling or someone having a rough go or something, and I come back out west, and I'm not going to say no to a fucking thing, because how dare I? I heard this story of someone who got in some trouble or gotten a bit of a pickle or something bad happened. How dare I? These are all positive things. But what happens is the next thing I know, I'm overwhelmed. I have too much. There were any number of times last year. I'll show you. This is kind of fun. I'm just going to do a real quick little. But you can see here on this little thing right here, there's only about 4 things on there because I don't have any jobs. At any point in the first 8 months of last year, there were 16 and 17 things. There were 16 and 17 folders in my projects folder. There were 16 and 17 piles of email to be dealt with. Some, I'm in a holding pattern still. They're still on the list. Other, we knocked it out. We got it done in a couple weeks. But that 17, how the hell do you get a website done or over the finish line when you're doing that? How do you take time to go on walks? No, you're getting paychecks every other day. It's awesome. You put them in the mail, you smell them, you look at them, and you put them in the bank and you get money. Great.
But that's it. The trick is to take those 16, 17 clients, and it doesn't need to be okay, now all of a sudden it's 0 clients. What I've found to be really helpful is to actually treat my own shit like it is a client. I have to trick my brain to go, here's this thing that I want to do desperately. I've wanted to do this for so long, and it's always been on the back. It always gets pushed because it's always the pain game that sort of comes through. And the real irony is that I think a lot of those itches we want to scratch, those things that we want to do, all comes back around in the form of the money, just in a weird and indirect way. It's like the people that are like, that spending their days just with a dull blade axe, just chopping down as many trees as they can. And it's like, I can't stop because I get paid by the tree. All they need to do is pull back and realize, oh, I need to sharpen my axe, or better yet, there's this thing called a chainsaw. So it's the perspective perspective, right? Whenever you've been grinding for so long here in the trenches, in the weeds, the perspective is the tree view, and you got to see the forest view. When we look at those things that we know matters, right? The sunrises and the sunsets and the family and the connection and all that stuff. When you have those people on their deathbeds, like making those kinds of comments, and we know it now, it's just the matter of like grabbing it and actually like committing to it. We need to give the same priority to those things we know are important as we do to the client, right?
Like, you can tell what a fucking animal I am, just how much I talk and how I can't even fucking form a thought on this fine podcast here. To all the 7 listeners, tune in for what I'm about to say here. Here's the thing. My doctor, Brett, I don't know you all that well, but you're comfortable to come here. I go into my doctor. I'm a fucking wreck. I'm talking way too much. I mean, I have to get a colonoscopy, all these things. These are Aaron, basic maintenance, man. They test my blood sugar with a little pick. And I go, but I did play this one song, and I do a little finger pitch and up. And they go, just give me the fucking finger. It's okay. I do it on my toe. Give me your hands. Just they zap it. And they go get the number, and we say, okay, this is where you're at. But yeah. I asked my doctor this last time. I said, how much do you work? Because this was on December 18th. Christmas is coming up. Do you guys get time? And he goes, I'll be working on Christmas Eve. Like, very matter of fact. And I said, okay, but you're rewarded for that, right? Like, how much does a doctor make? So I went home and I looked up what doctors make. Wasn't that crazy? Remember when you were a kid? Yeah. Oh, you're a doctor, you make all this much. You're a lawyer, you make all this much. You know, now we've traded notes on some of these things because I'll just say, well, when do you get time off? He works a lot. And yes, there's an interesting vocation to that. He's helping me get a little better. It's pretty interesting. And I say to him, how many years did you go to school? Well, I went 8 here and then 4 here, then 2 with this something EMT. And then I did, that's 14. I go, 14 years of fucking climbing the mountain. And this is what you get? Aaron Draplin here, get ready to take all his clothes off and let you dig around in all the bones and flap. I'd asked him this last time. I go, you've never touched, like your knee. Yeah. You've never put anything on my heart or like listen or something. Or you've never checked the circumference of my big fucking meatball head. And he's like, yeah, Aaron, we're just doing diagnostics with some of your basic plumbing and levels and everything's cool. This isn't just for a bunch of whiny graphic designers or maybe tech. It's in everything. And when you go to some truck stop, you talk to a truck driver. You ever see them jump out with the little round thing they sit on, a little donut thing? That's because they have hemorrhoids. That's a little pro tip. If you're ever in the lot, you see them carrying one of those things. Are they facing the same thing? Here's the answer. I don't know. I'm just trying to be creative with how I recognize what's bunching me up a little bit and then make some gradual changes. So where does the energy go? I've subdued it the last month and I've been sleeping in. And then here's a fun one. Stopping the day at 6 and going inside and fucking around with the Legos or doing the recycling. Why am I the guy in the neighborhood that brings his recycling out at 2:40 a.m.? Because I work late. So I've been trying to get the fucking recycling on Thursday nights before 8 o'clock to be a good citizen. That takes work.
So reprioritization, it is a recovering, maybe workaholism is too strong of a word. But we're not talking about workaholism in the form of doing a bunch of wage work. It's like, God damn, we get to get paid for doing what we love and we're respected for it and whatever. And so coming back to the privilege, of course we have to keep that going whenever people reach out to me about like, what should I do with my life? With it, like that's my other old Brad Frost inbox, which is the opposite of that. Bunch of people that reach out.
You write them back? You write them back?
Always.
Me too.
Always. Yeah. But the advice.
I'm losing my capacity because that's why I asked you at the start of this. Did people ever push back on you because you might have shown a vague snippet of what some turkey was asking? No one's ever pushed back. They're probably embarrassed. But I'll get these guys who, when they get my attention, they won't let go. and let everything until I have to say, hey man, I got to get back to work. I mean, again, they're fans, they're interested. I mean, I would probably do the same. I had Jay Maskus over here in October. He spent the night.
No way.
He found one of the dead notes on one of my jazz masters, but I can't write him 47 times after he left.
Well, no.
I go see the show. I'll go backstage. I'll get a high five. And if we go have a lunch or whatever, I'm on cloud fucking nine, but I'm losing my capacity. There's a certain humanity that you already answered when you drop up. I write them all back. Man, if I had 70 cents for every time some fucking big ass designer or whatever said, I don't do that, I'd have about $516 because people love to say, how dare. And I feel like it's like a price tag. We were lucky to get ahead and it comes with some stuff. Now people are going to ask for you for your advice. Be a human and share that. I'm losing the capacity, but there were a lot of times there, man, I didn't miss any school interview. These kids were the same 6 questions. Oh my God. What about the kid who's like, I'm in trouble? Okay, here's 7 things. Do what you will with them. Stay away from these fucking podcasts that want your money. They're going to solve all your shit. Be careful with these guru assholes. Watch out for the guys that are pointing. The guys who are these designer guys, they're pointing at things and they're going, how do I do this change? You've seen that mode. It's effective.
Yes.
Go look at their portfolio. You want to see how good the tips and tricks are? Go look at their portfolio. If the portfolio is shit, guess what happens when your portfolio is shit? You got to go point at things sometimes. That freaks me out. So I'll tell these kids, like, it sucks, but hard work, just the way to go. You can't get a design job. Did you get a pizza job? Would you get a pizza job? Sucks. What happens when you get back from your pizza job? You're going to spend 5 hours a night, like I did, pedaling my bike to go use a computer at Kinko's? I did that. Everyone else went out drinking, fighting, screwing it, chasing chicks, chasing dudes, whatever it was. I went and you got to find that in yourself. Kids don't want to hear that. Right? So I just find it interesting that you'll make that because it says a lot about you, you know?
But I think that's the education. People, just by way of reaching out to you, they're reaching to an external source to try to get an answer to something. And all you can do is kind of hold up the mirror to them. And that's the gift. That's the advice, right?
Yeah, I've met those guys years later who were like, dude, you were the only one who wrote back.
That's beautiful.
I put it, one of the things you hear in the last bunch of years is I went and applied to 171 places. You're the only one who wrote me back and said, hey man, I'm a one-man band with my girl, two of us. We're a little duo. We're white stripes, orange stripe, orange spot, orange skin tags. You can see where I'm going with this. But wow. Are you that busy? You can't just say, hey, we're not hiring. There's a weird abstract thing because I get berated for that in these podcasts or not, Q&A at some event or a workshop. Like, why would you waste your time with that? Just stop them and say, if all I do is design, I'm going to go nuts. If I've been ending my talk with this, I go, life is an arc. Over here, you're born. Where's the Himalayan Mount Everest? Because over here you die. And when you die, that's the end. And over here is when you're born. So where's the high point? Because if the high point, you don't recognize it, you might always be chasing it. So what if I just make sure that I'm on the old downward creatively and just embrace that and be okay with it and accept it and not play some game of chasing and let the Brad Frost who are going to replace the Aaron Draplins or the Aaron Draplins who might have replaced, who did I replace? There were a couple, I'm sure. I promised myself a long time ago, I would graciously say, thank you for having me. And then not be removed, but remove myself.
Sure.
It's okay. I'm out. See you guys. Thanks. It's been great. Go get the book. It's all in there. Because now I got these guys because we sold so many of those fucking books. For 8 years, I've been asked, when are you doing it again? I have to say, who wants every 2 years? Zeldman for some shit? Probably, But I have to live for 10 more years and make a bunch of shit and then talk about what happened. I don't even know if I'm interested in doing another one, you know?
But that's just it. It shouldn't be market forces or just you getting asked enough about it. It should be like, does it turn you on?
If I did it, it would just be like, here's ways to get ahead. Here's things not to do. Here's things, your health insurance, gotta have that shit tuned up. I need to make a little change in my health insurance. You should have heard this person on the phone who told me you didn't get the change in by the 15th. There's nothing we can do for you. What are you going to do about that? And I was like, why are you so tough? I didn't even know when I picked this shit 5 years ago or for whatever I was getting ready to get the courage to go up into the dock and all this. I didn't even know there was a rule for that. Now I know, but why are you mean to me? What kind of a job do you have? I said, isn't this all being recorded too? God, Dick. Guess what I do for a living? I've been sleeping in for the last month. Take that one. Then I got off the phone with this asshole. But it's like,
but then maybe that's your own life project. It's like there's all of the other things that have been back burnering for you. Isn't that a word? Back burnering? Sure, for a long time. But they're the real things. They're the nooks and crannies of life that don't get a lot of light. It's unsexy stuff that's confronting fear, navigating the healthcare system and the insurance system. That is the stuff of life. And I feel like in America especially, it is what do you do for money? It just sucks the air out of the room. And I find that there's just so many more interesting conversations to have, things to pick into, beautiful things to explore, music to make, music to listen to, art to just enjoy. The depth of life is so incredibly vast and deep. There's this narrowing. There's this like well-worn track that is just a known thing called like work and like how you earn money. The shape of design is industry is this just calcified known quantity. And it just feels just so, whenever you hear it for the millionth time, you have no choice but to just be disillusioned with it. Meanwhile, there's all of these other bands, there's all these other tracks, there's all these other things, aspects of life that are hard, interesting, beautiful, worth talking about, worth writing about, worth sharing, worth whatever.
What about at different ages though? See, 40, 51, it's like, am I too old to go and just change up some stuff? So here's the thing. It's like, instead of saying, I'm going to go be an exotic dancer now, it could be hard living off $11 a month, no tips, it's like,
a roll of quarters coming your way.
There was a person that really had a momentum in illustration and design and then just turned it all off. A couple of years later, I got a call because he was still doing client work, but he just wasn't showing it to the world. And he's like, I have no compulsion to have to share this. I don't owe anyone anything. It was a really hard and weird chat where it was like, well, that's what everyone does. You show it, you get people excited, you talk about it, you comments, you go back and forth. He was like, but why? And I got to tell you, he was way ahead of the curve. He saw it for what it was and wasn't interested in that weird carrot on a stick. Now, this is about 8 or 9 years ago. So I've just tapped in a little bit. Every now and again, I'll come out with some cryptic posts and people will say things and the things like, are you okay? Am I doing damage to my brand by not sharing every goddamn meal and every stupid little logo I was playing with? Why not? I learned something. I was delighted. I haven't shown client work in years, unless it's Chris Stapleton, because it's fun, big, and it's all over the world. I just was too busy being interested in making logos or making a record for John Davis and his Jinx record, which you should go listen to if you're a Super Drag fan. What if I was just to turn everything off? I'm not trying to be some big alarming thing, but I just turned it off. It's okay.
Yep.
Went and did other things. And what no one ever talks about, when you have a new initiative, a new beanie, you got to make Instagrams. You got to put it on a reel. You got to put it on a story. That was my experiment the last 2 weeks. 3 weeks was like, I'm just going to do other things. And I'm getting these messages like, you all right? Where are you? because you start to become like an entertainment.
But that's the dynamic that you're picking up on. It comes naturally to you, obviously, but there's a threshold that gets crossed where it's like, oh yeah, this feels more like work, or this is extrinsically motivated versus I made some cool shit and I want to hold it up and share it with people. I've been having fun for like the last like year or two, finally starting to publish some music that it's not even done. It's just, here's this little lick or here's this thing. I feel compelled to just go, here's something. And there's no like, I hope people even like it. I feel just this innate, I made this thing,
right?
And that, but then there's the sharing and the tap dancing because you have to, and it's the right thing, I should do this, and that's different, right? And so what's interesting is that when we get closer to being able to have our realities in our day-to-day life more aligned with our intrinsic motivators versus paying attention to any of the noise that's happening elsewhere, right? What do other people think I should be doing? Am I doing enough? Am I not doing it? Am I showing up? And dare I say, and I'll tread lightly here, even when it comes to taking care of your loved ones and the people in your life, that can cross a threshold where the guilt or obligation crosses the line and care to all of us, and you're not taking care of yourself because you're like falling on the sword. What I'm super pumped about right now, I'm just able to go, cool, here's existing in the world. What do I want to do? Obviously, some of that needs to involve earning some bucks.
Yeah,
we'll figure that part out. This is my hypothesis. I'll let you know when I land. But just by way of operating and doing what you're to be doing in the world, what's intrinsically interesting to you, will all somehow feed back into our keeps the lights. That's my hypothesis. I mean, so many cool projects, these things that are just weird, totally like left field things. And some of them I've been working on for years. I'm going to be like launching them over the course of this year. I'm actually doing some courses. So now I have a product to sell. Now I have a Draplin show that I can like drive people back to. If you were to just be like, I'm just going to post these Lego sets because I think it's fun, whatever, I bet you any money that's going to sell you some field notes. It doesn't have to be explicitly like, please buy bets. I think that this is what might attract people to you. People, I think, are starved of joy and starved of happiness. And when they're able to sort of see it and recognize it in how you operate in the world, it has an effect.
Oh, wait, it works on me. It works on me. I get yelled at a couple times a year when someone says, why don't you have a YouTube? Because you know what happens when you walk in with a fucking film crew to your coffee place? People say to you the next time you go in there, hey, Hollywood, where's your fucking film crew? Or you're one of these guys walking around going, so here we are at Brad Frost's backyard and we're going to, whatever. It just turns into this in production. You're like, not everything needs to be shown, but humoring that and going, well, what does that model look like? We've come up with a couple little weird, anything but design with Aaron Draplin. You want to know what it's like to go to the doctor with me? I'm going to show you. So if you see it go quiet on my Instagram, that could be due to politics because it's creeping me out, or because I'm just not fucking showing it all. Do I need to make an announcement so people don't write me and say, is everything okay? And I just put a little fun post that says, you guys, I'm okay.
So go lift on Jess. It'll tell you everything.
Yeah, I know, right. I was so proud of my Skillshares because I'd be like, this has to be accessible to a Brad Frost who knows what he's fucking doing and to a Frost Brad who's just starting out. Mm-hmm. How do we get both? Because I can't just go after the beginners. I can't just go after a bunch of experts. So we really tried to think about that. I'm proud of those things because kids show me what they made and what they did and all the other stuff. But I don't need to make 18 of them. Like I'm running out of ideas. Even though it's effective, So like Skillshare has kind of tapered down for me. It's okay. Field note still going crazy, Going on the road is just about non-existent. The only reason I'm going to Ann Arbor is because my mom is 20 minutes from there and I get to go spend 8 days with her.
Beautiful.
If you want me to talk in Heartland, Michigan, I'll sign the papers right now because she's in Heartland, Ann Arbor. But I couldn't figure out the Buffalo one, but I've already been there 3 times.
But that's just it. That's just it. You don't need to do the victory lap in the weird fitting leather pants like when you're doing the greatest hits tour just because
there's ways to monetize someone's downfall. There's ways to monetize someone's rise on the way up, and all of it creeps me out. Like I'm doing this thing for these gals in Australia coming up here, and it's all going to be about examples in my life of how I'm paring things down. And so what I've been doing, I've been grazing sections. If there's some value to it, it goes into a pile that I can go, I don't know, Facebook Market, Craigslist, eBay, and try to sell it and get rid of it. And if it's just purely like aesthetic value, I've just been taking photos of stuff and then taking photos of stuff and get the memory, and then you're done. And then you got this thing, you give it back to the world, put it back into the universe. And I have these things that goes on a goddamn tiny little digital smidgel called my computer. And I can still go through it and enjoy it. And I'm going to make a project out of decluttering my shit.
Beautiful.
I know how to make a production out of every fucking element of my life. And that freaks me out. It's not a bad thing, but what if I just don't? You know what I mean? And next thing you know, get room back here. No more stuff coming into the shop. If I bring this in, I have to displace it with this much stuff. You have to understand, I have piles of shit around here. It's hard to show the pile, but it's an old vintage ashtray, from my smoking days. Just kidding. But it's filled with little bullshits that I've gotten on the road for $1 or $2 or little things I just want to play with. Like this was some bicentennial bird logo from 1976. There's this incredible thick line little hawk thing that's there, and I play with it. I keep it here. But here, the new rule is like, I haven't opened a drawer in a couple years. Why even have it? Take it out the fucking face. Take photos of it, glean what you need to glean, and get it back out in the universe. Because I'm just coming to this point where, like, when my dad died, we're still sifting through his shit.
Oh, dude.
And there's a weird burden to that. He used to joke, "Hey, asshole, someday this will all be yours. Don't wish that on me because I know what it's going to mean." We're 10 years out. And by the way, I always say this on the podcast. If anyone's listening about my dad, we are saving so much on groceries. Holy shit. He died a couple years before to get a new tooth. Yeah.
That matters. The old phrase, like, you can't take it with you when you go, right?
Versus just memories, data versus space. Maybe what I just need to do is just reset the whole fucking machine, which is like, I've got a little too many piles rolling around here. When you're buying things to hold things, that's weird. You don't even notice you're doing it.
I had to clean out of order. That fundamentally changed
my family or something, or
that fundamentally changed my relationship with objects. When you see that tendency go to its logical conclusion, also coupled with this truly unhealthy attitude, like I wouldn't ever call you that. You have a gift at seeking things out. There's a curational role. There's an archivist role. You're doing a service. And so I like how you're processing and figuring it in a way.
I've never had an intern, couple deals, but what if I got an intern paid and said, come in here and help me pare shit down. I need this. I need it knocked out to a white background. Go. I'll show you this. This is interesting. There's my wall of books. There's my wall of records, but there's my wall of books. So I want to just point to something here. It's hard to get with the orientation. See that yellow book right there? The yellow book. What that book is right there. When I went to Slovakia a couple years ago, I went to Bratislava design thing. There were kids from Poland coming in. There were kids from Latvia and Serbia down in the Balkans and all this interesting stuff, and Russia and all this, Ukraine. A kid presented me that yellow book about some Slovakian famous designer. I went through it, and there's about 4 pages where all his logos. That's where I really tune in. But the other 285 pages has this incredible life and type and design and sculpture and all kinds of things. I've looked at it once. What I've been doing is I've been going through and being like, well, I read that. Am I really going to read that again? Now, the scary part is I'll go look it up on eBay. It's $240 because I got some first issue, and then I'm instantly freaked out of like, I can't give away some weird value of $3,000 with this 8 books or 12 books I pulled out of here. That one's a first of this. I haven't looked at it since 2007. There needs to be a little hand guide. When you're feeling this bunched up, how do you slow it all down and pare it all back? Well, here's some techniques. I guess a U-curve or something.
It's such a weird thing because, like your arc, here is your life arc, and for the first part of it, it's into us. Grow, earn, amass, consume like the acorns because, you never know. And that is how society is structured, is to very much encourage that attitude. And so the opposite of that is really hard because you're going hard against the grain of it's just into us, every aspect of society.
Sorry. Where are we at with this thing, by the way? I think, should we wrap this shit up? Because I got emails coming in here. I'm getting itchy.
It's one more quick thing. I don't know this record. What's front of mind? You turn your computer, was it McCartney? Here you listen.
Yeah, today, all the Beatles celebration. I'm not the craziest Beatles fan. I have them all up on the wall. I mean, I was raised with that shit.
Sure.
John Lennon is celebrated, and the cultural ties, and when they broke up, and it's celebrated. But what hasn't been celebrated to me too much are the Wings, or McCartney just on his own. So when you look and like, wait a second, that movie I watched, it was 1969 into the Apple 9-hour thing. Just 6 months later, he was making this McCartney record. What does it sound like? Some of it's a little goofy, but you start getting into some of those mid-70s Paul McCartney's. Holy shit. Now, all I'm saying is, now, the next problem I'll have is I'm going to want them all. One of the big ones that happened about 2 years ago was a band called Superdrag. What I mean by that is, in my indie rock 90s, in 1995, I was seeing the Jesus Lizard and Archers of Loaf and Polvo and Shellac and Mule and all the junk we liked. So Smashing Pumpkins a couple years before that, the grungy things a couple years before that. A couple years after that, Elliott Smiths and Sunbolts, Uncle Tupelo, after the Uncle Tupelo, Sunbolt, Wilco, all that. Okay. It was in Minneapolis. I chalked up this band Superdrag as kind of pretty boys because they had outfits. They had cool haircuts. I heard the one song. We all know the song that kicked out, whatever song. We all know that was the big hit. But you kind of like, they're on the fucking radio, man. A buddy kind of challenged me and said, why haven't you gone deep on Superdrag? I didn't have an answer other than like, I knew the song. It wasn't for me. Why don't you go listen to the other 11 songs on that record? Motherfucker. That was a weird Not a Surf kind of got me too.
Dude, Not a Surf's amazing.
So because I just like, they got a hit and it's just this. There's 11 more songs on the record. That's the lesson. So I'm wrestling with these existential things, but I'm also just wrestling like, okay, well, if I quit working so much, there's going to be some voids to fill. So how am I going to do that? More nature. I just got to go out and go do it. More time exploring other parts of Portland while we're still here. Because, another thing we wrestle with is, should we stay here? Now, by the way, where are you at? You're in Pittsburgh, right?
Pittsburgh, yes, right.
It's funny. I've been there. The yellow, I know. Primanti's still burping that shit up. But is there any chance you'd ever go back to Oil City?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't
because
think so.
We are wrestling with 10 years later, we might be going back to Traverse City. It's quiet. It's by the water. It's definitely less expensive than Portland, Oregon. And suddenly these new premiums are starting to overwhelm the reality that, yes, there are 16 record stores here, but I don't even go anymore. So what am I doing? The other night, a band called Brainiac that I liked back in the day, and they were coming through, and they're all 55 years old, and they're doing some kind of hurrah kind of tour or whatever the fuck. Bunch of buddies hit me up. I called a friend. I got a couple guys on the list. I couldn't go. I did not feel good. I was a little under the weather, but it's not for me anymore. I don't want to be at that show like, why do I just listen to the fucking record here? You know?
Yeah.
I had no pants on. By the way, this entire time you've been recording, I am bottomless, just so you understand. It's a little weird, but you'll never know, Brad. You already got up. I saw your boxeroos and everything, and I get it. I'm bottomless right now. So, to come face first with that and say, unless Dinosaur's coming back in town, I'm going to go say hi to Jay and see the band. I'm going. I work for him. Great. If Super Drag dudes, John Davis and his buddies come out here, I'll go see the show. I'm going to see a band called Idaho next month because I never got to see them in the fucking 90s. They were so sporadic and stuff. But past that, we went and saw Stapleton last year because we were like guests. We got all the way into the fucking back. I mean, I kept telling my buddy in the back seat, take notes, buddy. Here's what happens when you're one of the graphic designers that works for this big countryside. We were laughing our asses off. We saw Chris, we hugged it out and said hi. And then I said, tonight, don't phone it in. Draplin's in the crowd. You better give it a little bit of extra oomph. And he was like, fuck. That guy is carrying 25,000 people on average a night.
Amazing.
It's amazing. And he does it and he sweats. He looks great. He looks cool. And people can't get enough. All this stuff. It's like I'm taking stock of all aspects of my life. And some of it doesn't align with the Aaron Draplin you met maybe even 7 years ago when we met, 10 years ago. It doesn't align with the one 4 years ago during the pandemic where I was showing everything. And even, I look at my Instagram, it's like, wait a second. All those TikToks that were turned off for those 18 hours or whatever the hell that was, where did all that shit go? It's just sitting on a server. Now, I've never even thought about my Instagram like this, but that is a book in itself of 4,893 posts.
Yeah. I probably have similar too. Yeah.
So you look at that and you're like, whoa. What if I recalibrate that and you come to the Draplin.com and no one gets to fuck with it? Like what I'm going to go do, this sounds insane. I'm going to mine. There's 4,893. Maybe there were 400 that were just good. I'm going to go mine those. They're all backed up in layered Photoshop files. They're all big enough to put into a square. I already have them in a square. And I'm going to put those in collections and be like, all right, you can go find this in 2017 in the middle of our book tour, or you can just come to the site and see these things celebrated. Like there should, I have to make a post that just says, come to the site. It's okay. We work on your phone now. Responsive. By the way, to all the UX people, I'm sorry I said mean things to you guys. Let's end it on something positive.
Coming back to the sabbatical, because you're like, I didn't end up doing it. I'm going to give you.
Are you going to do it?
So I've done it.
Yeah.
And I think I have a strategy that might scale. So here's the trick. The trick is to go far enough out into a calendar where there's nothing but tumbleweeds. And then you draw a big fucking line, start date, end date, or whatever. And you do it, but you do it so far out, like when you drive out in like the American West and you can see the storm that's like 2 days down the road. Like that is the horizon that you need to do something that big. Because all these people are like, how did you do that? I said, well, because I drew a box 2 years prior and everyone could see it coming from a mile away. All of my work colleagues were able to be like, we know that Brad's going to be out for these 3 months. I knew that I was going to be out. I knew that I needed to earn a couple more acorns in order to do it comfortably. So that's my hypothesis. It worked for 3 months. I want to do another one at some point in time that is closer, either a year or.
Well, did you find, what I'm wondering is, and even in those 3 months, because you weren't facing the buck, were you spending less too? I mean, I know the answer. I look back at a talk I did in 2012. And I said, I think I'm going to fucking retire at 40. Got some cake in the bank. I'm getting tired of this grind. And I got yelled at by this rock and roll guy named Chuck Prophet I used to work for. He was like, you're not doing that. We don't get to do it as musicians. You're no different. You keep hustling. Well, things fall into place. My dad died. I have to take care of certain things, whatever. It's not a bad story. It's a good story. I got to go to a lot of cool places. But what did you learn when you got that 3 months off?
So there was a couple things in that 3 months. And my pursuit going into it was for 2 seconds. I wanted to know what it felt like to be bored. Without the clutter, without the obligations, without the emails, without the whatever. I wanted to wake up in the morning and I wanted to just get up whenever I felt like it and to say, what do I feel like doing today? And to just accept it. There's no should. I've had other things where I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to like carve out this stretch of time and I'm going to write my book. I'm going to do that. There's this urge, this compulsion that we have that's like, oh, well, we got to like be productive with our time. And on one hand, that's true. On the other hand, there's limits to it, everything in moderation, right? So I wanted to get a taste of what it felt like to not give a shit about those 17 emails in the inbox and to embrace just being for a while. And it was only, and this is why I want to do it again, it's only towards the end that I really kind of started.
Yeah, you have to walk on the end of the dock and you jump in the boat just because you're in the water. You got to get away where you can't see the dock. That's going to take a couple months where we're just what happens if a client in week 3 of that 12 weeks says, oh my God, we have a devastating thing to change this. You're going to go right back to it because I know your nature. I know. Here's the thing. When I take the time off to get back into the swing, it is harder and harder and harder to do, to get that momentum. What we were accomplishing in November was disgusting. The pace we had, making new merch, wrapping up 17 of those clients. I did that all in the series of November and December, but that meant that when, for 12 days of Merchmas, we did this little goofy thing called 12 days of Merchmas. First 12 days, there are 5 posts you have to build and design. There's a reel you have to put up and film, put a graphic on it. It was just too much. And nice return. We saved it all. And I just chopped off a mountain of Lee's debt, So I freed her up. Why are we doing this shit? So I can just have the bank account and be like, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. No, I'm fucking freeing her from all the chains of unfair shit. And I told my accountant, she was like, no one ever does that. We're not married, but I've been with her 16 years. I mean, I love the woman. So I defied all logic and went and drained one of the accounts, and she gets to walk around a lot later today. Hell was loan, little cars paid off and some other bullshit's paid off. Because I have had that levity for a lot of years. When I get a bill, I fucking pay it. What a privilege. I want her to have that same thing. By the way, I've already done that for my mom. I've helped my little sister and shit. So, what's around you, that is job number one. Because you're coding and you're making beautiful websites and solving these digital problems for people or whatever, and I'm making whatever bullshit I make. It's not like we're swinging a hammer, but I got to tell you, some days it sounds pretty cool to go swing a hammer,
Oh, dude, I fantasize about that all
day. I watch these things. But when the guys built my shop here, how does the beam connect to the concrete? And he goes, watch, and there's these clips, and you put the beam in the clip, and and it's like, oh. And then you get another beam to that, and it wasn't any big mystery, but I miss working with my hands.
Totally. 100%.
A little youngster back there. I see a little.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, Aaron.
Hey, no.
Hello there. Hi there. Hello. Hi. I got to go do some stuff. I got something I got to be to by 5.
You do your thing, man. Hey, thank you so much for talking. This is fun, man. Thank you so much. This is great. So take care. We'll see you later.